It's going to be a football game tonight now. No doubt. It's going to be a football game here. Okay. I done been here before. All right, let's go, baby.
The 9. Rushing 4, ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground, and it's still on the ground. Picked up by T.J. Ward at the 4-yard line. Vaughn Miller did it again.
Alabama back on top of the college football world.
Ladies and gentlemen, football to the max.
Your host, Sean Garmer, Gary Vaughn, and Randy Isbell.
Hello and welcome to another Football to the Max college football edition here as we are previewing the ACC this time around, and we have Last Word on Sports college football writer Justin Gordon here to talk with us, of course, the ACC, and he also particularly writes about the Miami Hurricanes, the U. So he'll talk about Miami and, of course, the conference as a whole. And we got nice news that hit today as well concerning the ACC that we'll talk about here in just a second. But, guys, we just had a show like seconds ago and on Sunday. So I feel like are you getting sick of me yet?
Nah. It's kind of funny. It's been so sad, during the off season because we've just got kind of left out, in the cold when it comes to news. But then again, it's been a lot of fun talking about, of course, we've been doing our NFL division by division series, and now we're doing our, conference series for college football. And I do enjoy that. It is fun. It is a chance to get a little bit more education about what's going on in the world of college football and things like that. So, no, I'm not sick of you just yet. Maybe let's talk when it gets to the NFL training camp. Maybe then.
You're on thin ice, Sean.
Oh, damn. what I gotta do?
Oh, man, I love it.
All right. Well, the ACC, ESPN actually owns almost all of the SEC network. And Fox sort of has the same thing with the Big Ten's network. Now the Pac-12, they own their network. And what's the other thing? The Big 12 does not have a network, right? It's Texas that has one. And so ESPN has backed the ACC and getting a network. I think if ESPN owns any part of it, it's a very small amount. But this will be ready by 2019. The digital version will be ready this fall, supposedly. And this extends their rights deal with ESPN until 2035. Jesus. That's a long way away right now. So past, 20 years now that you're now dealing with ESPN and the ACC, this has got to be a great deal for the ACC, and meaning that they really believe in your league and that it's going to continue to get better. And not only that, but if Notre Dame ever decides to not be independent, they have to sign with the ACC now because they have them in all the other sports.
Yeah, this is definitely big news. I watch a little bit of the SEC Network now that I have the PlayStation View and it's on it. They'll throw some old football games on there, and I'll check them out. And it's a neat little deal. And obviously, once football season comes, it's a great place to catch just more college football, really. And that's what I see the ACC Network being. I know, Root Sports around here would show a lot of. They would have the ACC Game of the Week. So you could get your ACC fix in as football wise, but this will just give you a bit more. But really, I think ESPN did this deal for the basketball, not the football. Uh, I I think obviously the ACC basketball has been one of the top conferences in years. I mean, you have the Duke North Carolina rivalry, so get ready if you do watch the ACC Network to see Duke North Carolina basketball replays until you're blue in the face. Uh, but it's going to be good for football too. It's more money for the schools, which I mean they're floating in it by now, which will I mean just it can't hurt anything. Hopefully it gets to the point now if all these conferences can start getting networks and figure out the money deal. Maybe you can pay the players a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Big 12 would be the only one of the Power 5 that does not have its own network. So, Gary, you better tell your conference to get with it.
My conference doesn't really matter because my team already has their own network, so I could care less about my conference.
See, you
Sorry,
have that
it's sorry.
selfish attitude.
Yeah, hey, my team can afford it. Even if we're not winning a lot of championships, we can afford it.
I mean, this is only a good thing for the ACC, and I mean, comes obviously, the recording I did with Justin was like almost, I want to say almost a week ago now. So obviously, I won't get to talk to him about this, but I could imagine that if he's the one that gets to write this for Last Word or somebody else, there's only going to be praise given for this, and also because they didn't let ESPN just own the channel. That's another good thing too, because if something ever happens with them and ESPN, they can just take the channel and have it on their own. They don't necessarily need ESPN for it. So that being said, that's pretty much our only news item to talk about since it had to do with what we're doing here, and we kind of do want these things to stand by themselves. So I need to actually, you guys need to find something to talk about for a second while I get this clip here.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. We've been doing this college series, and I mean, it's made me more and more excited about college football season, Randy. I mean, I really, enjoyed it last year, but man, I wasn't, I don't think, as pumped as I am beforehand.
Yeah, college football is always a blast. I mean, not only are you going to get some crazy matchups, and the fact that college football does feel like a year-long playoff for the teams that want to win the championship. But I mean, there's a football game almost every day now, with some of the smaller conferences splitting up. Uh, I think the ACC even has games, one game every Thursday, don't they? Is that the one I see on ESPN? Is it
Yeah,
ACC?
usually, yeah, it's them that has the game on Thursday.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm a perfect fit here. So just that's one of the other great things about college football is being able to go to work where I work, and that knowing that most nights I'm going to at least have a football game to watch for the first few hours.
Yeah.
All right, well, here we go. Justin Gordon talking about his Miami Hurricanes and also giving you a really good preview of the ACC as well. All right, I'm here with Justin Gordon, Last Word on Sports, writer for the Miami Hurricanes and the ACC. How are you today?
Not too bad. Up here in South Carolina, just trying to stay cool. How about yourself?
Down here in Miami, trying to avoid this humidity. But, I guess we'll start looking at the team itself, and then we'll go reaching farther to the conference in general. So Miami has, they changed coaches after what the disappointing year last year. For maybe people that aren't too clued in on what's going on, what can they expect from the team this year? Especially with, it seems like everybody's kind of pointing it as a two-horse race between Florida State and Clemson.
Well, honestly, I think I'm looking at the odds makers as far as how when the schedules was released, and a lot of them are putting Miami at maybe 6.5 wins this year, which means about maybe 6 or just maybe 7. But I think Miami is really slept on. People think that they hired Mark Richt, and they still think that Al Golden's still the one leading the team. I mean, this Miami team, even if you look at the years that Al Golden was there and how many disappointing seasons, how many seasons Miami has came up short, the talent has already been there. If you look at a couple of years ago back, Jameis Winston's last year with Florida State, they took Florida State to the wire. The year they went undefeated and went into the college football playoff, even last year. Granted, that's a rivalry game, but you got to think at the time Florida State was just one of these juggernaut teams. But Miami still has the talent that's there. It was just, with Mark Richt being hired, it's a culture change. They got new coaches, a new defensive scheme coming in, to really take advantage of that talent that is there. Everyone's saying, it's always going to come down to Clemson and Florida State, but honestly, there is no reason why that Miami cannot find themselves in Charlotte for the ACC championship. When you look at their schedule this year, they don't have to play Clemson. They have Notre Dame, they have Florida State, of course, but it's not. Of course, it's not a clear-cut victory to get there. But to say that Miami is only going to win 6 games with the amount of talent that program has, with what Mark Richt is doing as far as bringing the new coaching staff and changing the culture down there, Miami is really a dark horse team to win the ACC.
You were saying that of course, the talent's always there, and that the schedule is a little bit favorable for them. Talking about that talent specifically, what do you think makes them stand out above, say, North Carolina or Virginia Tech there in the Coastal?
Well, of course, they do have the quarterback Brad Conner. I mean, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the ACC, second only to Deshaun Watson, of course, but because of the lack of production that we've seen out of Miami, he hasn't really been able to show off as how good that he is. Looking at the returning starters, Miami returns a good bit of their starters on offense. So they do have that going for them. The only thing that really needs work on is defense. But Coach Diaz, he's really down there. He's bringing back the 3-4 scheme. That may be the only thing that may hold Miami back is their defense. And, of course, they're losing Artie Burns and a couple other players in the secondary. They got some freshmen back there, but they do have Redwine, who's there, who can take over at that leadership position. So the secondary is probably the only thing that's really shaky. But when you look at, as far as the Coastal is concerned, North Carolina is really one of the bigger teams that they have to worry about right now. But of course, they lose their quarterback in Marquise Williams, but North Carolina still is an issue there. And of course, Miami had that, blowout loss to North Carolina last year as well. But as I was saying, Miami's offensive firepower is there. We really don't know what we're looking at when we come to North Carolina's defense, because last year they were really more firepower on offense. So I think Miami's offense will be able to keep up with North Carolina's. What it's going to come down to is Miami's defense as far as they want to take the Coastal, which I still also believe that they can.
Do you think Mark Richt can shake that whole sort of being the bridesmaid but never the bride sort of thing that he had in the SEC, where Georgia would get really close but just obviously not get that cigar kind of thing? Do you see him being able to do that with Miami eventually?
Yeah, I think so too. Because I think during Mark Richt's time at Georgia, everybody said change is good. He's rejuvenated. He's going back to his alma mater. He has a chance to bring a program that is a historical power that has been in the dark ages for the past couple of years, and he was able to do that same thing at Georgia. Not to say that the talent in the ACC is weaker than the SEC, but he does have a better chance, I think, with his coaching style, with the play style that Miami has, and with the level of opponents that Miami has, especially in their own division at the Coastal. Them getting Miami to that next level and getting rid of that stigma that he has with himself as far as, getting so close but yet so far away. I think he really does have a good shot to move beyond that as far as and define his career. So his career won't be defined by just, barely getting there or getting there and not finishing the job.
Are you worried about any of the teams there? I mean, I know we talked about, you said North Carolina's kind of the main one to worry about, but are you worried about, say, a Virginia Tech or maybe a Pittsburgh knocking on that door for Miami and saying we need to worry about them too, or is it just North Carolina?
As far as the Coastal is concerned, yeah, I'd have to say North Carolina, Pittsburgh. They're going to be interested in seeing how they're going to rebuild their wide receiver corps. They lost losing Tyler Boyd and a couple other players. They have a way to go. Virginia and Virginia Tech with their new hires. It's going to be interesting to see how Bronco Mendenhall and Justice Annette, they do have a program there. They are program builders, but they still have a little bit of work to do before they can get their programs to where they need to be to really compete in the Coastal, I feel. Georgia Tech, you never know what you're going to get with Georgia Tech. I mean, I think last year was everybody was kind of shocked by last year's disappointment with Georgia Tech. I guess the only other team I could think of that may give Miami some concern in the Coastal would possibly be Duke. That, once again, that's kind of like a Georgia Tech. You kind of don't know exactly what you're going to get year in and year out. But looking at it now, the only one that I see that could cause immediate concern right now would be North Carolina.
So moving over to the Atlantic, which obviously with the two big superpowers there, and then you've got at least Louisville, which seems to be another team that people are saying don't totally sleep on them, but because you do have to play Clemson and Florida State, it's hard to think of them going anywhere. Do you see anything for Louisville?
I can see Louisville making a good bit of noise there. Of course, like you say, they're with juggernauts and Clemson and Florida State, but they got their quarterback Lamar Jackson, who he played very well last year as a freshman. So if it's not this year for Louisville, I think they have themselves set up in the next couple of seasons that they can really try for the crown. Take the crown away from Clemson and Florida State. And I think this year we'll either see a good preview of things to come if they can continue if they can build off their success from last year with the young talent that they have now.
So I mean, if you're gonna, I'm gonna make you make the tough decision here of between the two. Who do you think comes out on top of this Atlantic? Is it going to be Clemson or is it Florida State?
Good question. You always got to keep Clemson in there. Because they still bring it back to Sean Watson. Dabo Swinney after last year, getting so close to the championship and losing it. That's really Dabo Swinney is going to have them really hyped for this year. And for that reason, I'm going to have to pick Clemson to come out of the Atlantic for a second year, or once again.
All right, so can you give me a full standings for both divisions?
Full standings. As far as what every team's record is going to be for this year?
It doesn't have to be the record, just like 1 to 7.
All right. I see what you're saying. Okay. All right. For the Atlantic, Clemson was number 1 because I had them winning the division. Number 2, go Florida State. For number 3, I'm going to go ahead and put Louisville because, like I said, they have a lot that they can work on that they're building off of. 4 would be North Carolina State. They're a team that, every year you they're always interested to see what North Carolina State does. They had a somewhat of a decent run last year at one point in the season. So we'll see if they're able to build off of that. bottom teams, Syracuse, got a new coach and Donnie Babbers or Dino Babbers. And so yeah, they would have to be my 15. Boston College, man. Between Boston College and Wake Forest, I'd have to say hopefully Boston College, their defense was playing good for a while last year, but yeah, he's still Boston College, so I have to go with them, 6th spot, and at the bottom, Wake Forest. And as far as my standing for the Coastal, for the sake of argument, as much as I have faith in Miami, that Miami could potentially end up in Charlotte, North Carolina is still the king over there, at least for now. So I have to go with North Carolina 1, Miami 2. And when they play, I'm not at the schedule in front of me, but that will be one of the games that decides that's going to decide the Coastal. So I'm going to go 1 North Carolina, 2 Miami. A 3rd spot, I'm going to give that to Georgia Tech. I'm going to believe Georgia Tech. They look at this past year and hopefully don't repeat the biggest disappointment as it was. 4, I'm going to go with Pittsburgh. They still had the talent. They still had a quarterback. Still have Pat Narduzzi. Duke, I'm going to go with 5th. Then I'm going to finish with Virginia Tech at 6 and Virginia at 7. Brock Mendenhall, he's going to build that team together, but they're going to have to take a couple of lumps first in order to get that program where he wants it to be at, and how he did the same with BYU.
All right, interesting on that end. So for Miami, who's a player that maybe, people don't really know a whole lot about that you think by the season's end he'll be one of the standout players? Or someone we're at least having in the conversation, just saying, all right, didn't know his name before the season started, but he's definitely a guy I'm looking at next year as being one of their big players.
I'm going to have to say it would probably either be Mark Walton or the defensive back, the cornerback. I'm trying to think what his first name is against me right now, but it's the Sheldrick Redwine, the cornerback. Yeah, he's going to have to take over the spots and fill up the gaps that's left out of a lot of the defensive players apart, like Deion Bush and Artie Burns. And I think that he really does have potential. I mean, he's thrust into the fire. He's been started a few games, started a couple of games last year and the season before. So he has the experience there, and now that is basically his secondary. I'm reading that he's out there, he's mentoring the younger defensive backs that are coming in, so they have a couple of freshmen. So I think, especially that skill set, and then how Miami is with their defensive backs, he really does. He has the potential to be one of the breakout players that, like you said, people may not have heard about him, but by the end of the season they'll know who he is.
All right, Justin, you answered all of our questions here, man. I want to say thank you for helping us out.
Yes, sir.
And all right, that was the last word on Sports Writer Justin Gordon talking Miami and the ACC. Guys, I mean, it's obvious it's a 2-horse race in the Atlantic, but who's your favorite here?
Go ahead, Randy.
Yeah.
Well, I'm still trying to decide if I want to make the leap and say that it's not a 2-horse race to me in the Atlantic Division. Oh. I think, to me, if I go through the rankings, which we'll get to in a little bit, I still think I have Clemson and Florida State finishing 1-2. But I would not sleep on Louisville this year. I mean, they're returning 15 starters, including Lamar Jackson, who's only going to get better. I mean, he's still a sophomore, but I really think that he can lead the way. I like the way that they were looking at at the end of the year. And I really think that with the more experience that they're getting, that they could contend with Florida State and Clemson. The problem is they do go to Clemson on October 1st, but that early game, September 17th, when they host Florida State, could rattle some cages if they can go in there and pull off the upset.
Oh yeah, for certain. I totally agree with that. And you never know in this college season what could happen. And it's a team to be on the lookout for sure. It's just so hard, no matter what, to place them above Florida State or Clemson. I mean, Clemson has basically proven that they are a really good program and that they can make a lot of noise this year, not just last year. And then of course Florida State, they continually stay great. So I mean, there's a possibility that Louisville jumps one of those teams, but if that happens, I think there will be some people questioning, wow, that's a little bit more surprising.
Yeah, I mean, my only question with Florida State is the quarterback. And that's a position that Clemson has locked down with Deshaun Watson. Like, what you're getting. Now, the problem is the Clemson on defense. How do you replace the Shaq Lawson and Kevin Dodd, Mackenzie Alexander? How do you replace all those guys that quickly? Are you going to be able to do that? That's a question mark. And then you got Louisville too. That could they pull an upset on one of the two teams and put them in a pickle with each before they face each other? So I'm gonna say Clemson of Florida State right now, but man, that's gonna be close. Where do you guys think for the Coastal? Do you agree with Justin that it is North Carolina and then kind of everybody else, or do you think Miami's a little bit closer?
I'm extremely biased with this, so it's hard for me not to totally agree with him.
Bias.
I mean, I've already taken my shirt off and waved it around my head like a helicopter. Petey Pablo, love you forever, man.
Wow.
But no, the Tar Heels, man, I can't deny that they're going to be good. Miami could be very sneaky, though. I'm sorry, but Miami's one of those teams you'd never sleep on.
Actually, I think you need to. They have a new coach and everything, and Justin Fuente, and I mean they've got to rebuild some. But I'm saying watch out for Virginia Tech, just because they do not play any of the big three in the other division in the Atlantic. So they have a much easier schedule, and if they can get some things figured out, they could be competing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's possible, but I mean, to go back to it, I think this is the tougher division to come up with. I think North Carolina, you could probably say, is still the best, but they lose Marquise Williams. They do bring a lot of people back, but they do have to travel to Miami and Florida State this year. While Miami, who their season is on the line, I'm going to get the dates right real quick, on October 8th and October 15th as they host Florida State and North Carolina back-to-back games. So the schedule is not easy for any of these top dogs, but from 1 to 7, this is one of the closer divisions that we've already had to talk about so far.
All right, well, we need to do that. We need to rank these divisions very much like what Justin already did. So let's start in the Atlantic, 1 to 7. Where you got them, Randy?
All right, so I'll go the other way. Let's go 7 to 1, just because we can get through these guys really quick. Syracuse 7, Wake Forest 6, North Carolina State 5, Boston College 4. And those guys have zero chance. Don't care about them. Maybe Boston College can get to a bowl game. Don't have to worry about that. I'm going to pull the trigger, and I'm going to have Florida State be number 3. I do have those same questions as you, Sean, as far as Sean McGuire at quarterback. I mean, he's been banged up in the offseason. I don't know if he really has it anyways. So I'm going to have them 3. I will have Louisville number 2 for the reasons I mentioned earlier. But I think Clemson is by far the tops of this conference and has a very good shot at making the playoffs. So I will have Clemson winning the Atlantic.
Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
All right, well, I'll attempt to go backwards as well because I kind of agree with Randy. These bottom few really are not very important. So I'll just say Wake Forest is my number 7. I'll go with North Carolina State as number 6. Number 5 would have to go to Syracuse. Boston College would get number 4 for me. And you guys have all made a lot of good points about Louisville, and I totally agree. I'm sorry. I just got to put them at number 3 only because I feel like Florida State's going to find a way. They usually do, and you're usually sitting there saying how and why and what and, whatever. So they're still number 2 for me, and Clemson definite number 1.
Well, I got a Syracuse 7. I disagree with you, Randy. I think, NC State and Wake Forest, with who they have non-conference and whatnot, they could wind up in bowl games as well. I'm talking about barely getting there, but, whatever. I got Syracuse 7, Wake Forest 6th, NC State 5th, Boston College 4th, Louisville 3rd. I don't think I can make that leap like Randy. Florida State 2nd, Navy with 2 losses, maybe even 3. And you got Clemson as number 1 for me there in the Atlantic. So going over to the Coastal, Randy, what you got here?
Does somebody have a 7-sided coin? All right,
you can rule out Virginia.
We can rule out a few for the most part, as far as winning the whole thing. But I flip-flopped a lot while listening to our guest and listening to some of his points and going through some of the notes I've taken this week. But I will stick with North Carolina first. I do worry again that they lose Marquise Williams, but they bring a lot of talent back, and they were high-powered last year. They had that tough loss to open the season, and it just sparked something, and they went ridiculous. So see if they get that spark right off the bat because they get Georgia in their first game. Then I'll go Miami. I do see them getting a resurgence. Again, their whole season rests in those 2 games. But if they start getting some injuries, they're not deep at all. And, they could just, fall apart if luck is just not on their side. I'm going to go with Georgia Tech. I know they had a really bad season last season, but injuries are what got them. They played such unconventional offense where, they remind you of Navy, where they run the ball so much, and they just didn't look like themselves last year. So I'll take them 3rd. I'll take Pittsburgh 4th. Very tough schedule where they go Penn State, at Oklahoma, at North Carolina in 3 straight weeks. And they also don't have Tyler Boyd anymore, so I think they take a step back. I go Virginia, actually, number 5. I know they have the new head coach in Mendenhall, and I agree with him where I think it's going to take a little while before he really makes an impact. But I believe in him. I've seen him in BYU. He was a great coach there. I think he's going to make an impact. I'm not as big on Virginia Tech as you are, Sean. I have them 6th, and then I have Duke in last. They're the worst in the ACC as far as only bringing back 8 starters. And I think they don't go back to the way Duke used to be, but they will fall off a little bit.
All right, Gary.
All right, well, I'm going to go in reverse order here. I'm in agreeing with Randy that Duke is the bottom feeder here at number 7 for me. I have my concerns about Virginia. I don't know. I know that I like the head coach as well. Watched BYU quite a bit last season. I just know it's tough to get a program going sometimes, and I think they're going to end up at number 6. And my number 5, I look at this and I just really kind of debate from there, but I think maybe Georgia Tech for me. 4 is Pitt. I don't know. Yeah. And then Virginia Tech is my number 3, surprisingly enough. Number 2 is definitely Miami. Once again, sneaky team. You got to watch out for them. And, of course, number one, those Tar Heels in North Carolina.
All right, I'm going to go. I'll stick with you guys, and Duke is number 7. The worst team in this division. I'll go with Virginia 6th. Pittsburgh 5th. I'll go with Georgia Tech 4th. Virginia Tech's schedule is just too nice. I think they'll wind up in 3rd. Miami 2nd, and North Carolina winning. This division would be the first time since, I think, 2010 they've had a repeat winner in the Coastal. So, would be good for North Carolina to get this one. And do we all have Clemson beat North Carolina again?
Yes.
Do they get to the playoff, Clemson?
Yes. They are one of my 4.
Playoff, Gary? Yes.
You know what? Yeah, I think you're right. Watson, yeah, I think so.
All right, well, that's it, guys. That about does it for this ACC conference preview. I have no idea what we're doing next week. I think it's one of the smaller conferences next week that we're doing. So that
Tune in to find out.
Yeah, tune in to find out, because I'm not going to scroll through Randy's messenger right now. I need to write those down somewhere else besides Randy and Brandon's messenger.
Actually, hold on. I just searched ACC. Mountain West looks like is next.
Mountain West. All right. So unless I magically find someone, it's probably just going to be Brandon breaking down the Mountain West and then us talking about it. But still should be fun either way. So we shall... we'll see you again on the Friday show where we discuss the AFC North. We already know 2 of the guys will probably have for that. You hear them all the time when we talk Steelers or Ravens. The other 2 are a little bit of mystery, but we'll see how that goes. But until then, everybody, subscribe, rate, review, subscribe to that WTM number where you get all of our podcasts besides this one, and includes this one as well. And we'll see you then. Later.